You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Hello and welcome to Force 13 Live. We are covering the progress of Cyclone Mocha, which, as you wake up this morning in the Indian Ocean, is stronger, quite a bit stronger. Winds of at least 120 miles per hour and a pressure of 951 millibars. And to add on to that just now, in the last half hour or so, we've just had news from the JTWC, and they have upgraded the storm at their end to 130 miles per hour, which would actually make it a Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, which is a whole 10 miles per hour higher than what we're currently running with. So, interesting turn of events here, with this storm probably resuming its strengthening phase very shortly. It's had a bit of a pause, and now it looks like it might be on track again, and we'll see if we can corroborate any of that information on satellite imagery and whatever other tools we've got with us shortly. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio, and I'm joined by my team, which right now, for our live stream today, we have Christian, Farhan and Patrick. I want to speak to Farhan first because you're closest to the storm. That's sort of my policy, although you're not in the storm's way. You're in Indonesia. Your thoughts on Cyclone Mocha this morning? Is it strengthening?
Well, considering the environment has to battle with up to this point, I think it is still strengthening, which is quite remarkable. And you often see that with North Indian Ocean. It's sort of like, other than the Northern Hemisphere basin, it's sort of the wild card. Like, you don't know what it's going to do. Sometimes it's very predictable, sometimes it isn't. Which end of the scale Mocha has fit into, I'm not particularly sure, but whatever the case, as historical precedent has said, you don't need the storm to be particularly strong in this basin for it to be particularly destructive, because the entire coastline of the basin are extremely densely populated, so it doesn't really take much for it to do damage. And of course, the main concern, at least for me, is that Myanmar is going to be where the storm making landfall. If you don't know, they have been going through a bit of a civil war for about the last 2 years, so it's doubtful they're going to be able to make any sort of tangible preparations. And without preparations, the impact could be very catastrophic. Of course, although this is probably not an accurate comparison, but I'm just throwing it out there just to have some historical analog. Nargis in 2008 came in with very little preparation on Myanmar's end, and it was very devastating. And the country was at peace at the time, and it wasn't at civil war like now, so it's very worrying for them.
Certainly, lots of displaced people in Myanmar and in southeastern Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar, that region. Quoted at over 1 million in the northwestern part of Myanmar displaced persons, and 1.8 million across the entire country. Now, this is already a humanitarian issue before the storm arrives. And the threat here that it could reach Category 4 status, or possibly already has, according to the JTWC, and more strengthening possible. Big questions on just how strong this thing can get now. And I don't know if anyone has any projections on how strong they think this storm might get right now, but as we look back at this satellite imagery, it is building back in. That eye and the eye wall there looking very impressive on those very latest satellite imagery frames. Any comment?
I'm currently taking a look right now at visible high-res imagery as we speak. Currently taking a look right now. I can definitely see a concentrated area of clouds beginning to build back into that eye wall as the night is turning into day over this storm right now in the Bay of Bengal. This appears to also have some cloudburst along the northern periphery of the eye wall as well. There appears to be several bursts of convection that are also being picked up on visible high res, as well as other instances of this. Yeah, like you said there, Nathan, that eye wall definitely beginning to fill back, or the eye definitely beginning to fill back in. The eye isn't as well defined on visible high res right now. It appears to be
Hmm.
completely filled in. However, I could definitely still see a semblance of an eye, although it's not the most well-defined eye because of those clouds that are filling in. However, still this is a intense storm that is going to be posing a very serious threat to Myanmar as well as areas surrounding the Bay of Bengal as this nears into landfall.
That was the voice of Patrick right there. Nice of you to join us straight off the US coverage that you've been doing there, leading the coverage with lots of tornado activity across the US. That's a conversation for another day. Um, it's nice to have you with us. And we also have Christian, who is one of our regulars as well. You've been watching the storm at length too. It took its time to get sorted out, but it really is pushing it right now, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. I mean, the last time I was on one of these live streams, it was category 180 miles an hour. As of now, it's category 3, would you say it was 120, I think?
That's what we were running with, yeah.
Yeah, but the JTWC running with one category higher as of now, which is not something they normally do, as far as I'm aware. And yeah, like this system took its sweet time to get organized. It was ended up being like 91B, 1B. Ended up the IMD took its time naming it, and now here we are, with a category 3, possible category 4 on our hands, bearing down on Myanmar in a few days' time.
Now, I've just seen this
One thing
information.
that has to
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to add that one thing that to be noted with the IMD is that they have two types of tropical depression, unlike other scales. So it does take a while longer for them to name a storm because they have two types of depression, which is very unique of them. Yeah, just want to say that.
Yeah, it's true. I just also want to point out here that just a little clarification: the JTWC haven't released their advisory yet, so there is still the potential for them to change their mind. It is the Navy update, the ATCF system, that is currently running with 130 miles per hour. That could still be revised before they come out with their actual update. We'll see, but usually not, but sometimes that can happen. But right now they are going
Um,
with 130 miles per hour and a pressure of 955 millibars, which, to be honest, is quite high for a storm this strong. That pressure.
I do want to point out here that I'm currently noticing a sudden intensification of the eye or the eye wall. It appears that the southern extent of the outer eye wall appears to be intensifying. At least in terms of infrared imagery, I'm seeing more convective blowups to the south of the LLC. It does appear that there could be a southern intensification of that outer eye wall. There what I'm currently looking at right now, I am also seeing the potential of some potential mid-level dry air intrusions that could be going into the storm right now. I definitely do see areas of dry air. There also could be something trying to shoot into the southwest core of the storm. However, given the fact that this is over extremely favorable sea surface temperatures, as well still has very violent convection in its core with over I believe anywhere from -50 to -70 degrees Celsius cloud tops. The still has shooting cloud tops. So despite the mid-level dry air intrusions, I believe outflow is vertically stacked. So this thing does definitely has the threat and has the potential to cause some significant damage in Myanmar. Also, something else I do want to point out here is that I'm also noticing that the northern I don't know if this is the inner or outer eye wall, but I am seeing that the northern potentially the northern inner eye wall or perhaps the northern outer eye wall is retracting a bit to the southeast towards the core, which could be a sign that mid-level dry air intrusion's underway. Also, shear, I believe, is
Hard to
moderate
tell.
at around. It's hard to tell, but I can definitely see signs of that beginning to happen because there definitely is an eye wall retraction happening to some extent. So still very dangerous storm in the Bay of Bengal right now. Definitely is worthy of potentially being a very intense storm and could cause some significant damage. And you need to be keeping watch of the storm over the next 24 to 48 hours before this thing makes a Category 3 landfall, according to the JTWC. JTWC has, I believe, 100 knot landfall, which would make it at about a Cat 3 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. So it'd be 115 miles per hour. And this is a pretty dangerous storm.
So many things to talk about right now. I've got to run through quite quickly. But first, Farhan, you're showing us a little image there. The hoisted storm signals. Where's that?
Yeah, so as you mentioned before, Bangladesh is also threatened by this. And one thing about that area of Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar, is that there is quite a huge refugee population of people from Myanmar who has escaped the country in the last several years due to all the chaos and discrimination, especially of the Rohingya people. And although, as I said, the level of oppression in Myanmar is doubtful at best, at least in Bangladesh, we could see some confirmation of preparation. This is delegations of the Bangladesh branch of the International Relief Center, and they are volunteering to help prepare the refugee areas of Bazaar filled with displaced people from Myanmar to prepare, as we can see in these pictures.
Hmm.
Now, just for some reference, if you don't know, this is where Cox's Bazar is for any uninitiated people. And currently, with the current projection of the storm's track, it's probably not going to get the worst of it, but still, it could change at any time. So it's better to prepare for the worst, because in the very least, if it doesn't happen, you are very relieved and unharmed. Instead of being unprepared and being completely devastated by it.
I would caution that very small deviations could have big impacts, and Cox's Bazar is currently likely to receive at least strong storm force winds, possibly towards hurricane force. Now, let's go to some comments and questions. A lot came in earlier. First of all, Air Shocker we have to clarify something here. They said the Southwest Indian Ocean was 70% 40 minutes ago. What happened? I assume you were looking at the automated stream which we're borrowing in the background, which is still stuck at 60%, but I can tell you it is 70, so that's just out of date info, and we will be updating that soon. Is there a low possibility for a Category 5 landfall from Cyclone Mocha? I mean, it's never out of the question, but I would say the chances are very low. I just don't see it being that kind of storm looking at it right now, despite its potential still. And we gotta mention Taniel, who's just joined us and supporting our stream today as well. Hello.
Hi.
Hello there. Thank you for joining us. And Tropical Storm Altony Bron as well. Thank you for keeping us updated on Cyclone Mocha. I certainly appreciate the support, which we use our funds for all kinds of different things. At the moment, we've increased our web space fourfold to allow hosting more satellite imagery and archives of them. So our prices have gone up a little bit on that. So if you do feel that you can support us in that way, there's many ways to do that, or just by subscribing to our channel for free, of course, on YouTube. And you can, of course, be notified of all of our updates, of course, on Cyclone Mocha and anything else around the world, as we do all year round. It's a very busy world. I guess once you've seen us in action for a year or so, you'll see how many storms we get in a year. It can sometimes break the 100 mark. Anyways, Cyclone Mocha, powerful storm. JTWC are probably going to run with Category 4, but at the moment we're still running Category 3 on our end right now. Let's take some more questions. Some very active chat going on. A Moment of Lovely, one of our chat mods. Any thoughts on the influence of the dry air in the northwestern quadrant? Is that what it is, or is it wind shear? Or is it both?
It'd be both.
Yeah, I think that's quite possible.
But knowing how well the storm looks currently, well, most certainly, as it is trying to, do its best, fight it off and probably regain its strength progressively. Just has to restructure on one side a little bit.
We didn't give it full attention earlier, but let's just show you once again this image earlier on, very recently actually, just from about 20 minutes ago, showing the morning image of this cyclone right now. And tell you what, visible imagery always makes a storm look more impressive, but you can sort of tell a few hints from its structure there as well. Northern side looks like there might be a dry slot right there, but I'm not... Yeah, I reckon that probably is a dry slot moving in that northern side, so it's still got a bit of work to do. However, the models, I think, were seeing this coming. If I remember correctly, guys, models around about now had about a 12 to 24 hour period of stabilization before intensifying again. And that's what we're really concerned about. This intensification phase is still on the way, and it's already high-end Category 3. How much more can it go with models potentially underestimating its strength and initializing it too low and all that?
I'm saying at least a 4 possibility.
Certainly concerning.
What degree of a 4? Unsure. I'm at least gonna go with a lower end.
Let's see what else we've got here right now. Are there any storm surge projections? Alright, let me try and get some info on that. I know it's pretty much definitely going to be above 10 feet by now, but let me just go back to the India Meteorological Department to take a look at what they're saying on the storm surge guidance. They are expecting a storm surge with a height of 2 to 2.5 meters above the astronomical tide, likely to inundate low-lying areas of North Myanmar and adjoining southeast Bangladesh coast during the time of landfall. It's quite intriguing, actually, that they're only expecting 2.5 meters. I'd have thought it would be quite a bit more, actually. Don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that, but it sounds
to me, that seems quite low.
It sounds a bit
What was
low.
it?
2.5 meters, which is about... Usually it's just over triple for feet, so it's about 8 feet.
Relatively low for a storm like this.
Well, that's it. Usually when you have a Category 4, we're talking 12, 15 feet.
Sometimes a little higher, depending.
But you said earlier that the pressure for this system is quite high as well, at 950, so...
JTWC saying potentially on this update 955, which I think is quite staggering. If it's going to be
very high.
I don't think that's the case for it to be a Category 4 and 955, but 120 and 950 is what we're currently going with, which is just a little bit of a high. Usually for 120 you would get around 945. So I don't know about this storm surge. The storm's large enough. It's not like it's a tiny storm, and yet looking at this graphic, as a matter of fact, I ought to show you this. Let me just get this ready. This is straight from the India Meteorological Department. You can see there they've got a nice little graphic showing the storm surge warning there. And you can see all those little inlets close to Sidway there, getting those high inundations. And I'm not sure what that number is on that scale. I think it's 2 point something, but it's a bit blurry. It's either 2.0 or 2.8 meters. But I think it may well exceed that. I think these areas could look at 3 to 4 meters in some of those orange spots there.
To me, that looks like 2.8, but once again, I can't quite tell.
Nah, impossible to tell.
Yeah.
It's a 0, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say 8 seems like a bit of an odd number to put on a graphic, so 2.0 makes a lot more sense, but you never know.
I think it's a 0. Anyway, there we go. That's their storm surge graphic. Let me see if I can garner some more information from that website here whilst I'm there. Let's see which one's most interesting.
While you're looking at that, I know for a fact. I know you don't like Flight Sim that much, Nathan, for
Well,
these.
God.
But Flight Sim is not really taking that one side of the storm lightly.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Now this is, I mean, it's, I'm not that averse to it, but other people might think it's a little bit of a faddy type of thing, and it is a crude way of taking a look at the storm, but it does give you a visualization, and it is a half decent measure of what a pilot might experience flying into a storm like this. And sometimes it has really pretty results. It generates the storm pretty well sometimes. I remember my first flight ended up being one of the best into Hurricane Teddy in 2020.
That was a beautiful storm.
Oh, it looked amazing on the simulator. But there
Yeah,
we
it was
go.
a large storm.
That often helps, I think.
Yeah. The bigger it is, more defined it looks.
Yeah, and as they say, Mocha looks pretty big as well.
It is.
Now its eye looks.
Oh.
If you go, flying up above, well, see it.
We have a lot more questions right now. Hanma says, "Is Mocha peaking, or it will in a few hours?" Question mark. I think
It's most likely going to peak at 120 knots, at least in terms of the JTWC. So no, this is definitely not peaking right now.
And as soon as they release their next update, if it's during our stream, we'll let you know. But I would assume that peak would be in... well, actually, their previous forecast says 24 hours. So between 12 and 24 hours is probably going to be the peak time of this storm. So where does that take us, local time? That's for about late evening. And also, just want to point out as well, time of arrival for these winds too. Along the coast of Myanmar, we're looking at possibly late evening local time for the arrival of these tropical storm force winds. All along that coastline, Sitwe, I keep forgetting the name of that place further south that's a little bit of a tongue twister for us English tongues. Kyakpu, I think it is. They'll probably get tropical storm force winds by evening, late evening. Those two places particularly we are concerned about right now.
Flight Sim, I'm in the eye wall.
All right. I think we had some more questions there as well. Let's just get on to those. We're happy to take as many questions as they come in. It's sort of
Hey Nathan, real quick question before you go ahead and do that. I just want to ask a question for my own, because I haven't been really on top of this
course.
now. But what are the current storm surge forecasts for the Bay of Bengal as well as coastal areas of Myanmar?
Well, I just went through that not long ago. Mainly on obviously the southern side of where the storm makes landfall, wherever that is going to get the highest amount of storm surge. IMD, in my opinion, playing it low, saying it will be 2.5 meters. I think it could quite easily get to 4 meters, if not more, for a Category 4 storm, assuming that it does make landfall near that intensity, or reaches that intensity shortly before landfall. And on that note, the music guy says, could this storm produce a 15-foot storm surge on the coast of Myanmar? That's towards the higher end, I would say. But certainly,
That's probably like
well,
worst case scenario.
no, I would say that's on the higher end, but not worst case. Worst case is still reasonably worst case, is that this could still get to Category 5. Unlikely at this juncture, but if it did, you'd be looking at 20-foot storm surge probably. More comments here. Random says, what's up with the South Pacific Invest? Well, there's a little system down there right now, and I can give you a close-up, I think. Let me go and look for it. And
Good old night.
we'll just diverge for a moment whilst we take a look at this, just for anyone who might be watching on the remote islands of French Polynesia this morning, local time. Who knows, we might do. We've had people from pretty much everywhere around the world. Even, I think we had someone who was stationed in Antarctica in our server at one
I
point.
was about to say Antarctica.
Yeah, that's crazy. And if they're watching, we'd love to get in touch with them. There's not many people that can say that they've been there. Anyways, here is yep, here is this system. You can just about make out the islands of French Polynesia on the left-hand side and all around this system. And here is the system itself. It's not very well organised. And we're looking for something possibly towards the southeast of it to spin out of it there and eventually maybe acquire subtropical or even tropical characteristics as it heads southeastwards. It's a small window of opportunity. It's moving away from those islands. They're getting quite a bit of rain right now, but if it does develop into anything, it won't be affecting any of those land areas. So that's something to bear in mind.
To be fair, it looks better than the last few hours previous.
And here's a view of the eastern Indian Ocean, just to show you both of these systems. There are two there. Obviously Mocha, which needs no introduction, and that southern system there, that's Invest 92S, and that is starting to look a little bit better there on that satellite imagery. Very elongated right now, and enormous little shield there moving along of light clouds spiraling out, almost its influence reaching Australia even from there. But eventually we expect that this system will tighten up a little bit more and become a tropical cyclone in about 2 days, possibly 3.
Yeah, that imagery there kind of reminds me of the situation way back with Asani and Kareem.
I think it was Ethan that mentioned that actually on our last stream, comparing it to that.
Yeah, I mean, again, that what I'm bringing up here again now. This is what it reminds me of. It looks pretty beautiful actually.
And here's me who can't actually remember that because I don't remember anything these days. These events.
Say that.
Well, no, it's just that we cover so many events. I don't really get the time to look back, especially on recent events, because I'm always looking forward to the next one. Not looking forward in a good way, by the way. It's carnage. But especially
about to fly into the center.
with this El Nino coming up. There's going to be a lot of activity in the Pacific by the looks of things,
Yeah.
so we're going to be looking up towards that. But there we
That'll
go.
be fun.
Hopefully that means that the Atlantic,
Yeah.
at least in terms of the North Atlantic, it's not going to be as active. But the Southern Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico, oh boy, you better get ready because with these El Nino events and whatnot, they're going to be limiting the amount of enough conditions about in the north, but in the south, especially the Pacific and Eastern Pacific, it could get very active.
My focus this year will probably be on the Pacific. The
Yep.
entire Pacific.
And if there's Atlantic storms, we'll be here to cover them for you.
Silver Psycho says, did Mocha have a center relocation or is it lopsided? I can assure you, at this strength, there will not be a center relocation. It has to be pretty weak for that to happen. No, it's just had a bit of a lopsided night, but it does look like it's building back in and looking quite ferocious on those latest satellite frames.
Yeah.
Okay, just looking at some more comments here. Did we say in our previous live stream that there's a pressure ridge that would take Mocha moving towards the northeast? I'm not sure. It might have been Soham that said that, but I would imagine that it's a weakening ridge because the storm's being pulled upwards a little bit more rather than being pushed further south. And I suppose the models were fighting a little bit with that possibility.
I do see it wiggling a little bit more east as we're speaking. It's going in a more easterly jog. Maybe that icon might have been right.
What, the storm? The storm itself?
The storm.
Yeah.
The storm itself, I'm just looking, it's making a eastward jog than what it was doing before. Kind of have to look on a longer loop cycle to spot it.
Now, the more this storm jogs eastwards, obviously that would favour a more southerly landfall and a quicker landfall. If it steers further towards the north, it would obviously have a little bit more time over water, so potential to intensify, although the conditions are worse further north. So it's sort of quite a few variables there to consider. But a quicker landfall if it turns further east, a slower landfall if it goes north, but possibly a quicker demise because wind shear north of Cox's Bazar is enormous. Let's see what else we've got right now. Lots of viewer comments. It's nice to see all of the interaction. I'm just trying to get through to some of the more interesting comments and ones that were directed to us particularly. Amount of Lovely in our comments. What do we think based on wave estimates? We're at 10 to 16 meter high waves. I do not think that the storm surge numbers are realistic. Land is just 1 meter above average. Of course, high waves, as a lot of us know, isn't the same as storm surge. You can have 50-foot waves out at sea, which only leads to 12 feet of storm surge on land. I'm not sure if there's a correlation between the two. I've not looked into it that heavily, but you're talking there about very high waves getting up towards 40, 50 feet. There's certainly the potential for absolutely over a 10-foot storm surge. I do think 2.5 meters, what IMD is saying, is way too low. And at what time UTC... Oh dear, I can't speak. What time UTC will Mocha make landfall? A question there from Alex. Well, I think it's looking more and more likely now that we're going to have a landfall on Sunday afternoon or evening local time, which would be late morning or early afternoon at UTC. Can't say that that's set in stone just yet, but we're talking about 30 to 36 hours right now.
Mm.
And should we be concerned about the rainfall too? Yes, we are looking at up to what was it now, 11 or 12 inches of rainfall on top of what's already occurred over these areas. I think some rain may have been falling, but yes, potentially up to 300 millimeters of rainfall in some of these locations close to the storm. Now, I don't know if anyone can share a rainfall map at all on screen shares. I can't at the moment. In the meantime, one of our A Moment of Lovely has sent in some more graphics. So this is quite interesting. Let's see if we can take a look at this. Now, what are we looking at here? I'm trying to decipher it in real time. This is from one of the emergency management teams, and that's depicting the storm's forecast track, and they're expecting a landfall of approximately, what's that, 190 kilometers per hour. That's about 120 miles per hour after a stronger peak. And then what are those colors relating to? I'm trying to figure this out myself here. Oh, rainfall accumulations. So this is their expectations over some of those more mountainous locations along that ridge there. We could be looking at over 500 millimeters of rain. Near the landfall zone, we're looking at around 250 to 300 millimeters of rain, and they're calling for landfall there just north of Sitwe there, moving inland. Also looking at those storm surge figures, interesting that chart is also saying only 2 to 2.4 meters, which I'm not convinced about, of course. Let's just see what, there's another graphic that was posted there as well. Just having a look at this. I imagine it's from the same source, or maybe not, it's from the World Food Programme, showing a lot of information there. Very similar statistics to what we produce, actually. People at risk, 120 kilometer per hour wind speed, 2.4 million people within that zone. And I'm trying to see if it says anything about storm surge on this one. I can't see anything. So nothing mentioning storm surge on that, so nothing saying higher storm surge, but I am pretty sure that it will produce a higher surge than 2.5 meters if it gets to category 4 status. I don't think there's much question in that. Any thoughts from our team right now? Well, Daniel's on his little adventure there.
Currently dealing with a U.S. matter here, real quick.
Oh,
so
really? Another one?
No,
it's still continuing.
It's nothing. It's nothing important. It's just not relating to what's going on in the U.S. It's just operations wise. So I'll be back in a minute.
All right. More comments here whilst we watch Daniel with this recreation of what the storm center might look like right now if you were flying a plane in it.
I'm flying back into one of the sides of the eye wall.
Okay, let's see.
South, to be fair.
Yellow Boy says, is it likely for Mocha to be a very devastating storm like Nargis? Preparations,
Well,
everything. Go on then, Farhan. You probably more
yeah, I
well
just
versed on this.
I mentioned at the beginning about uh, how Nargis is unfortunately could be a potential analog in terms of the potential effects of this tornado on Myanmar. And the thing about Nargis is that the country was at peace, well, largely speaking. But yeah, there wasn't exactly a civil war waging. They just didn't adequately prepare. In this situation with a full-on civil war going on, it's very doubtful, to be honest, to what level the authorities of both sides of the conflict could really prepare for something like this. And so, although this is a very strong words to say, it is unfortunately very possible that we will see very heavy devastation. Would it be up to Nargis's level? I'm not particularly sure. I don't think this area of Myanmar is as densely populated as the area where Nargis struck, but it has a potential to kill thousands at least.
Yeah, Nargis, much further south, impacting Yangon and that whole region there. Massive storm, and if I remember rightly, a much more pronounced surge profile, wasn't it?
Yeah, the storm surge was actually one of the main reasons. Like, there was like a satellite video from NASA, I think, that show how the lower laying area was basically sort
Yeah.
of scorched by the storm surge.
Yeah, I remember that. Interesting thoughts there. Is Mocha at Category 4 yet? If not, when? Not according to us right now, but it could be getting there. JTWC are likely to run with Category 4 on the next update, which is due soon. Probably won't happen whilst we're on the air. But the ATCF readout, the automated system that JTWC often follows, almost always, are going with 130 miles per hour right now. That would be Category 4. We don't know if that's set in stone yet. But it's certainly got a decent chance. If that does occur, then more strengthening looks to be on the way, and it could get towards mid or high-end Category 4 status before reaching the coast. We do expect that it will weaken a little bit before it reaches land, but obviously whenever that landfall occurs, we will be here to cover it. Now, the music guy wants to know CDPS rating for Mocha. We don't use that anymore, but we are working on a new feature, and I would suggest that if we were running CDPS, it would probably be stage 6, maybe 7, based on the numbers that I'm getting from our new algorithm, which is going to be better. Takes on a lot more variables, has more accuracy, I feel. We just got to get the algorithm working right. It's still experimental at the moment, which is why I'm not sharing any concrete numbers on that. But it will be good. Now, what is... I just saw a comment go by there and it's just disappeared off my screen. What is our prediction for the Eastern Pacific this year? The season starts in 2 days.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow,
And if
that's-
Ethan's here, he would absolutely love to rave about that. I know that.
All I can do is refer you to the forecast that we put out last month. If you search up, I think it was on there. I can't remember what we... 2023 predictions, search that up on our channel and you'll see what we did. Our next predictions will be submitted on May 31st, so look out for that as well. But we think it's going to be at least... it's going to be toned up a little bit this season, quite clearly, with this El Nino starting to take place. But I'm not fully convinced the more central parts of the Pacific between North America and Hawaii are going to have as fun a time, because sea surface temperatures are still quite low there at the moment, below average.
Yay.
Yay.
And Nathan, if you wanna show the my screen again, I'm looking above the.
Oh wow.
Man, that's cheating.
Hey, could
It
technically
might
do
be
it
cheating,
with
but it's a beautiful view.
Well, I guess we
However-
can just do this when we don't have the International Space Station.
except the International Space Station would be going like we.
A little bit slower than that.
Well, they're a lot higher up.
That too.
So
And also a lot less of a view, more like this of a scan.
Speaking of which, I ought to check whether they are going to be flying over the area at some point soon, just in case we
I'll
manage
be
to
checking
catch
myself.
a flyby. As a matter
Flyby
of
for.
fact, I think we missed it.
Oh, great. I'll go back in the feed and see if we.
I just gotta wait another 90 minutes.
Oh no.
No, I think it would have been nighttime actually when they flew over it, so no such luck in being able to see the storm from that angle at least.
At least.
Let's take a look at some more comments here right now. Hopefully we're doing a decent job here. This storm, very powerful and dangerous, intensifying, 120 miles per hour at least right now on our estimates.
I do want to point out that this storm, if I am correct, is currently, I want to say 48 hours out from landfall.
Much less than that now, about 30 to 36 hours.
Okay.
Yep, it is getting quite close.
Uh,
I lost my train of thought there.
Nathan, so actually, from what I'm seeing, no, we did not miss it. It's upcoming.
Is it?
It's upcoming. So the next hour and a half, it will make a outer bands approach, and I think after that it will be like 3 hours, give or take.
No, you're looking at it wrong.
No,
If it helps, Daniel, you should know this. It takes an hour and a half to orbit the world, orbit the planet. You know.
Oh, I know.
Anyways, more comments here. Why did it take until the mid-2000s for a naming
That's a
list
minus.
to be developed in the North Indian Ocean? Good question. I don't.
Well,
Farhan, yeah, I'm looking to you here. I don't know.
I know. It's. I think Sohum would have been more qualified to answer this, being Indian
Gosh damn
and
it.
Indian himself. But yeah, it's interesting that the North Indian Ocean is the last of the official tropical cyclone basins to adopt a naming list in 2004. But well, it's better late than never. Uh, they have it now, I guess. So it's better now, Dad.
What about the South Atlantic?
I mean, that's
I mean, they
unofficial,
haven't. They
so
haven't. In
Still
this.
is, I suppose. Yeah, unofficial. All right, take your point there. Anyways, let's see what we've got. Some more questions here. How warm do you expect Mocha's eye to peak at? I mean, that's a very difficult question, if we're being honest. One, we don't know exactly how warm the eye is because the satellite can't always see all the way down there. The eye may, and this is where some people might get confused. Using satellites to estimate a storm's intensity is not the same as going into the storm, because you might have a 30-degree eye that's cloud covered. Obviously satellites won't see any of that because the satellite sends the beam down to the storm. It bounces back the temperature of those clouds, which could be 40,000 feet up, and obviously it's much cooler into the minuses. So it's satellite is a funny little way of estimating a storm's intensity, but usually, not always, but the rule of thumb is that the deeper the eye is on satellite, the more intense the storm is, obviously permitting that there's strong cloud tops all around it as well. To the question though, I think if it would probably get, I don't think we get to see really warm eyes on satellite very often. If I remember rightly, was it Umpan or a different storm only got to 9 degrees? And that was really powerful.
it's not. Yeah, fan is one heck of a storm, although I believe by this point, when it reached this point in the Bay of Bengal, it was already starting to weaken. But yeah, we don't really get warm ice very often in the North Indian Ocean. It's usually more of the Atlantics and Pacifics kind of thing to have warm ice.
Storm Dennis say, oh sorry, that was the same question. Tropical Storm Altony Bronze says, how far is Cyclone Mocha from landfall? Time wise, around 30 to 36 hours. Distance wise, we're looking at about 700 kilometers now. That's the distance pretty much from Sitwe. And what is the sea surface temperature where Mocha is now, and did it change behind Mocha? Well, obviously it will cause a cooler trail, but the current sea surface temperature right now is about 31 degrees Celsius. There was quite a bit of 32 before the storm arrived. There's now only a small tiny area of 32, and it's mainly 31, which is rocket fuel for these storms, so no surprise to see it really blowing up like this with massive convection. Let's see what else. The questions really coming in quick and fast. I'm trying to get through these, but these are from ages ago already. What evacuations are taking place on the coast? Do we know?
From the news article that I could find, there is only like implied evacuation coming, but I cannot see any confirmation as of yet. And as at least none that's in English. I can't speak Bengali or Hindi, so that's limiting what I can do here, unfortunately.
All right, interesting. Sorry, Tanya, you wanted to say something?
I didn't say anything.
Oh. And we already talked about that. Icy Flame says, now that shear is weakening, initial model runs had it do a massive rapid intensification until it makes a landfall. No way it does UMPAD 2.0 type intensification since shear is weakening now, question mark.
Well, the thing about Amphan is that, if my memory serves me correctly, it intensified from just being an infested category 5 very quickly. It was still like way, way south in the Bay of Bengal near Sri Lanka, and as it makes its way north towards its eventual landfall near Kolkata, it was slowly and slowly weakening. So I don't think Amphan is a very good comparison at all for Mocha, to be honest.
This is probably larger as well. Can't remember. Comment there, based on the satellite or inferred imagery, or infrared, are the minus 80 degree cloud tops starting to wrap around the center completely? Let's just go, just want to try and get some more recent imagery than what we're seeing on our screens right now. Let's just go back to this screen and change it to band 14, and we'll get to see a proper look at this again. This is from the Korean satellite known as GeoCompsat 2A, and there's a view there of very high cloud tops. The eye just popped out a little bit before and has disappeared again. Cloud tops certainly there, extremely high cloud tops into the minus 90s in a few spots, but the eye has disappeared again for the time being. So this is a little bit of good news that we're probably not seeing rapid intensification right now, but certainly is possible in about 6 to 12 hours time, and it could have a window of about 12 to 18 hours to do some rapid intensification, and from here, already high in category 3, who knows what that limit is.
Perhaps 130 knots at the very most. Although it's too far to determine that right now.
Now I may have missed some questions here because we had a lot. TCXLC32 Animation says, is Mocha doing an eye wall replacement cycle? Has anyone seen any microwave imagery we could possibly discern whether that's going on or not. Just going to take a look for myself here and see if there's any new microwave images. Actually, is that?
I don't
No,
think
that's yesterday.
so, but I haven't exactly checked on it recently.
I can't see any new microwave images, but my hunch right now is that it's probably not having an eyewall replacement cycle. And Nerdy Guy says, I know this is off topic, but do you think Hone will form this year due to the El Nino? I think it will.
I think it will finally.
Oh my,
I do.
that's a running joke that's been running for way too long.
It has. It's been nearly 4 years, and if we get to September, it will be the longest gap between Central Pacific storms since at least the 1970s, which is now a long time ago. So it's quite a big deal.
You're making me feel old.
And what cyclone in history hit the same area as Mocha now? That's a good question, because Nargis isn't the best analogue. But what is? I know that Soham mentioned yesterday the storm of 1994, and I think that's a good call. I'm just wondering if there's something better. I'm just going to have a look now.
I mean, I've seen Geary pop up several
Yes,
times.
Geary. Yeah, I was about to
Geary.
mention that.
Although that
The track is similar at least.
That spun up very quickly. No, the 1994 storm is actually an excellent analogue. Category 4 peak, Category 3 landfall, and it made landfall just on the border between Myanmar and Bangladesh, and that's the forecast.
I was actually just about to ask Nathan, is there any historical analogs to this storm in terms of its overall whatever's going on with it right now?
Yeah, and another one, actually, Forest, 1992. Category 4 peak.
Oh, Forest.
And
that was a storm.
Rammed in just north of Sittwe as a Category 2 before dying off very quickly when it moved inland. Forest, 1992, originating from the Western Pacific. Apart from that, Geary was a little bit further south, and like I said, spun up out of nothing very quickly, really, close to the coast. And apart from that, there aren't any really strong ones in this vicinity, so either Forest or I'd say the 94 storm is the best analogue. If anyone remembers that one, I would say it's quite a forgotten storm, actually, in the shadow of the 1991 Bangladesh cyclone and before the more active 1999 season and what happened there. So that's something to have a think about. Now, Canadians say that they're curious about the population of where Mocha is projected to make landfall. Last time I checked, there's about 43 million inside the 10% chance for 50 knot winds. So 43 million people with a 10% chance of 60 mile per hour winds, potentially destructive winds. So that's a really decent number there. SRB 12 says, what is your landfall prediction? Their prediction is 145 miles per hour.
That's a bit high.
I think that's a bit high. We've seen just on these analogues that the 3 strong storms that made landfall in this area all weakened before making landfall by at least 1 category. So that's something to look at, that we may get. You know, if it gets to Category 4, odds are it will make landfall as a Category 3. And just a few more here. An off-topic question. All the Bear Bengal storms having the deadliest storms, with the outsider being Nina in 1975 in the West Pacific Bay of Bengal. Storms killed more than 1 million people. I get what your point is. A lot of the deadliest storms have been in the Bay of Bengal, apart from one or maybe a couple more in the Western Pacific that have been forgotten in times gone by. And Storm Dennis says, are we planning to do any updates in the local languages like we do in Spanish? I don't think we're well versed enough for any of that, unfortunately. We stick to pretty much English and Spanish on our updates.
I mean, our doors are always open.
If anyone wants to help be translators for us, we, would really appreciate it if it helps us with our work and doing what we've got to do to get the word out for these storms. Then we'd love to hear from you, and if you can help us in any way as this storm gets closer to its impending landfall, or in the future after this event. We cover everything around the world tropical cyclone wise, so we've got all of that. We'll be finishing up shortly, but we'll be directing you to our automated stream when we finish up, and then you'll be able to take a look at live satellite imagery of the storm all the way through the day, and then we'll most likely have another live event in the evening local time. Can't see why not. And there we go. But before we finish, I believe the JWC have just updated. Yep, so the update is out and they are running with 130 miles per hour category 4. I'm running out of throat. And they are projecting a 140 mile per hour storm. Now, the big question is, are they projecting that for landfall? It's pretty close. Let's take a look at this cone right now. Here is the latest cone showing, that's not the latest cone actually. Just to refresh here, and there is the latest cone projecting a 120 knot peak. And does it maintain that intensity up to landfall? Big question mark. Probably not. And I imagine the JTWC might suggest that it gets a bit stronger in between those 2 points on Saturday evening. They are calling for landfall to occur in the early afternoon local time, just very, very slightly south of the border between Bangladesh and Myanmar. What do we think about this latest JTWC cone, guys? Reactions?
Well,
I think it's pretty solid, to be quite honest with you. Given the fact that there could be a window of rapid intensification, although we can't say if that's for sure right now.
No, but that wouldn't be rapid. They're already giving it 115 knots and forecasting 120.
Yeah, but there definitely is a window for rapid intensification if this does latch on to favorable conditions.
Sure.
So we'll have to see what happens.
But the main takeaway from that update is that they've upgraded it to a category 4. Do we agree with that fundamental point in their forecast?
we'll have to see what the cyclone analyst team says. But I mean, personally, myself, I don't agree with that. From what I've seen,
I'm not quite on board yet either. I think it will soon, but not just yet. But if that's everything that we've got to say here, we'll finish up now and we'll throw it to our automated feed. Thanks very much to my team for joining me once again on another live event. As we get closer to landfall, our live updates will stack up, and of course we'll be doing multi-hour coverage whenever the time comes to cover this storm's landfall. A major system, clearly. Very powerful storm. Whether it gets to category 4, low end, high end, whatever end, it's still going to produce a potentially disastrous storm surge and very strong winds and high amounts of rain. Thanks to the team there. My name is Nathan Foy. This was Force 13 Live. We have all of our channels and outlets where you can keep up to date with everything that's going on in the wide world of tropics. Please support us if you can. Subscribe to the channel for more information and regular video updates. Amount of Lovely, thank you very much for your support there as well. Really appreciate it. And we hope that we can do a decent job with this storm, as we've tried to do with every storm. We've been running for quite a few years now. Our coverage of the Indian Ocean has sometimes been a little bit here and there, but we're getting better at it. We'll be back again soon with more updates. Cesar will have a regular update in about 3 hours' time. But from here at Force 13 HQ, that's it from us. We'll see you again this evening, local time over there in Myanmar. Good night from us.